With Yuta taking Gojo's body in the new chapters of JJK, a lot of people have given up hope that Kenjaku is alive because it was confirmed that Rika ate the corpse of Kenjaku, meaning the chances of him returning are truly close to zero. But what if I told you there is a good chance that Kenjaku will come back and it's not as unlikely as you think it is, and why Kenjaku's return will be masterful and masterclass writing? We're going to be touching on some crazy theories in this video, so trust me, you're definitely not going to want to miss this. And of course, today I'll be joined by Blaziken Anime. He's a fantastic Jujutsu Kaisen YouTuber who makes high quality JJK content. He's got some of the best breakdowns and analysis you'll see on JJK YouTube, so trust me, if you love Jujutsu Kaisen, be sure to check him out. And of course, be sure to leave a like on the video. Thank you very much. And if you love JJK, subscribe to this channel too. I promise you, you won't regret it. And of course, thank you to the special grade members of the channel. Alright, let's get right into this. So, this video is going to be split into two parts. The first part is discussing the writing aspect on if he should come back, if that's bad writing, if it's good writing. And the second part of the video will be touched upon some absolutely wild theories on how he will come back. Alright, so first things first, to many of you, it's not a surprise that yes, I do not like the fact that Kenjaku was defeated so early, and I don't really have an issue with the way he went out. I think the fight with Takaba was amazing, and this of course always made sense since even before the Takaba vs Kenjaku fight, it was often discussed by a lot of power scalers that yeah, Takaba is sort of just unscalable since he has a curse technique that has reality manipulation that rivals even Gojo's own Jujutsu. So that in and of itself is not an issue, and also the fact that Yuta and Todo took him by surprise and really just sneak killed an off-guard Kenjaku. That in and of itself, I don't have that much of an issue with, but what I have an issue with is that we lost so many plot lines that were set up by GEGE himself throughout the story due to Kenjaku dying so quickly. And I want to remind you that this isn't anything new or too surprising. GEGE himself has said that when he's writing Jujutsu Kaisen this entire time, he's just been going with the flow where he doesn't have most of the story planned out and he's actually creating and deciding things literally as he creates the story. He's openly said this in an interview. However, of course, he did say that the most important plot points and plot twists that happen in the beginning of the series, in the middle of the series, and that will happen at the end of the series, so the ending, he has already decided on all those things. So I imagine all of the big plot points like Gojo sealing, Gojo vs Sukuna, Yuji being his reincarnated nephew, clearly those things we knew were planned out from the start. I mean, so much of it has been foreshadowed since chapter 1. Even Megumi getting his body taken over by Sukuna has been foreshadowed since the very first chapters. So he's got the big stuff planned out, but all the stuff in the middle he doesn't. And he's even said, and I'm paraphrasing by the way, but there's a lot of ideas that come to his head as he's writing that he includes in the JJK world, and there's a lot of concepts and things that he has in his mind that he may just not be able to finish or fully incorporate in the story. But not to go on a tangent right here, so I'll come back to it. Things that we never got were the Kenjaku and Choso plotline, specifically the death paintings where we had the first match of Choso discovering who he is, we had the rematch in the Tomb of the Stars, and clearly Choso wasn't done with Kenjaku. There was more left, he never got to end that fight, and of course his entire storyline and the storylines of the death paintings is tied to Kenjaku. There could have been so much more of that, and there was honestly, it seemed like it was set up for there to be more that GEGE never did for the sake of progressing the story. There's also the Kenjaku and Yuji plotline, which is pretty important because Kenjaku was the one who created him. He was his experimentation. He got with his dad specifically because he was the reincarnation of Sukuna's soul. It's one of the main villains and the main characters, their connection as mother and son. And Yuji, before the Culling game, did find out that Kenjaku was his parent. If you do remember in that flashback, it was heavily implied that when he came back from death after fighting Yuta, that those memories that we see were him actually remembering them in the coma, which is why only after that he actually refers to Choso as his brother, or at least someone who's like his older brother, because he remembered that Kenjaku is indeed his parent. There's a lot more that goes into that, but it's not that important. The point being, there should be a lot between the mother of the MC and one of the main villains and the MC. There could have been so much more, but it seems like we'll never get that. There's also the Kenjaku and Tengen past plotline, and this is the one that's been referenced more than any of the ones I've said before, and has been so directly foreshadowed that clearly GEGE has an entire past between the two fully fleshed out in his head or in his author's notes. He knows exactly what's going on, and like I'm showing you, you can see so many panels where he's saying goodbye friend, and then later on he's talking about Tengen, specifically talking about how they were in the past and saying that it was something that he hated about Tengen. There's so much that goes into it. There's so many popular theories saying Kenjaku was Tengen's student, or Kenjaku was a follower of the religion that Tengen was preaching, or was a worshipper of Tengen. There's a lot that maybe we'll just never know, which is a massive shame, especially because that one has been foreshadowed so heavily and referenced to so many times. And of course, there's so many other things like Kenjaku and Sukuna's past connections, Kenjaku talking to Sukuna for the first time, Kenjaku making Sukuna a cursed object, or Kenjaku's own past. Just how old is he? I feel like there's so much to his actual origin and even the lives that he's lived that would have been pretty cool to at least get mentioned or shown a bit more. So for that reason, it's why I'm not a big fan of Kenjaku having been taken out early. I'm not saying it's ruined JJK or because of this JJK's writing is horrible. I'm just saying that personally I'm not a fan of the choice and all the possibilities of what it could could have been. I feel like what we got is just pretty sad, but again, I'm not saying JJK is bad. I still do love JJK. And now I'm gonna pass it to my guy Blaziken so you can hear his thoughts on the matter.
So with the most recent chapter, it looks like my boy Kenjaku has been packed, specifically with the fact that Yuta has actually ate the remains of Kenjaku and obtained the body swapping technique. The likelihood of his comeback isn't looking too good. But my favorite thing, without hope, there is no cope. So we will be coping today and telling you why Kenjaku comes back. The first kind of instance of why I believe there could be is, well, the whole regime of he has lost in the past and still able to come back somehow. Of course, it's been pretty ambiguous. We didn't know how he lost. Did he actually die like this type of realm? Or was it something completely different that which was allowed him to really come back with his body swapping technique? But like I said, the fact that he did get 8 does really reduce the chances, but that is not the point of this video.
And now let's get into the second part of the video, theory crafting, where Blaziken will take it away again.
First aspect, and for those who are Tokyo Ghoul truthers, I won't go into too much detail because I do have a lot more detail I want to go into it and explain it a little later. However, if you are familiar with someone such as Eto and Furata, you would know that Kenjaku has a lot of similarities within their character. Now within their respective verse, and I'm going to say this again, there is spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled by Tokyo Ghoul, just skip a little further. One of these antagonists managed to come back through their respective end of the world merger type moment. In the Dragon War, we see Eto come back and was able to maneuver, which means there could be some setup with Kenjaku having a lot of influence from their character. The second, and well, this is a very crackpot theory, is the fact that we know in the fan book it says that his binding vow has something to do with the stitches, which is a part of his technique. We also know we haven't had the full explanation of the technique, which means there could be some things hidden that would foresee a comeback. So what if their original body is actually alive and the trade-off for the actual binding vow is that they can never go back to their original body? This would mean that to then break that technique, they would have their last chance of life, which would prevent them from basically being immortal or being able to body swap, because it would be like the last resort of actually being in their final body. Kind of like a Horcrux type of situation if you're familiar with like Harry Potter. And then the final one, which I think is my most trusted and way that we could go, is when he is transferring the essence into Tengen, specifically with him being the person able to split his body into cursed objects. There is a potential that Kenjaku added the essence of their soul to be reincarnated through the merger itself. We could get some moment kind of like Evangelion, I won't say too much, but there will be like a fight between control of the merger itself, with having these two overwhelming souls kind of overwrite against each other, and maybe Kenjaku either becomes the merger or something of some like sentient being around it, which kind of adds to some, I don't know, interesting things that we potentially couldn't foresee.
And I really couldn't agree more, and I think his theory is also really cool. And I do want to touch upon one thing that he did mention in a great theory of his, and that's the reincarnation aspect of it all. Is it not weird how, first of all, Kenjaku is aware of reincarnations, but second of all, how did he know that Jin Itadori was the reincarnation of Sukuna's twin? I mean, finding that out in general is incredible, because how do you know what soul someone has? How are you even aware of that to begin with? And it's even crazy when you go back to the whole talk that he had of Mahito, where he said the body is the soul and the soul is the body, and he only sort of realized that after he had Geto move when Gojo was talking to him. So it seems at least before this moment for the past 1,000 years, he did think that maybe they are just separate entities. This implying that his ability to detect the souls or know where souls are doesn't have anything to do with his body hopping curse technique, because if it did, then he would have known that the body and the soul are one. At least he would have thought of that a long time ago, not just now. And I'm saying all this simply to strengthen any reincarnation theories on Kenjaku, because if there were to be anyone who'd be able to control where their soul went or would be able to redirect it or have any sort of sense of it, it's Kenjaku. Another theory that I want to touch upon, and this was quite a popular theory for a while, although it's died down recently, and it's the fact that maybe he did place a cursed seal on someone so that if he were to die, he would go into that person. And there's so many different ways that this could go. Either the cursed seal is connected to a seal he has on himself, and if he dies, it breaks that seal, unleashing a remnant of his soul in someone else, or just like how he gave the people who incarnated into the Culling Game players cursed objects, maybe he did the same with someone else. It could even be someone we know at main HQ, and when Kenjaku died, it broke that seal and maybe even moved his soul into that other person. And I know it's already been addressed who the mole is, how everyone was questioning who's the other mole, and eventually we found out it ended up just being a higher up, but it would be a wild plot twist and callback if there really was just another mole that even Jujutsu High didn't know about. And this is one that Mekamaru may not even know about, but the mole may have agreed to this cursed seal or cursed object within them, and they know that after Kenjaku died, his soul would have gone into them, incarnating that way. But you may be asking, wouldn't the sorcerers at Jujutsu High notice this change if Kenjaku were to take over somebody's somebody's body, and they wouldn't at all. It's just like when Yorozu took over Tsumiki's body, you have the choice to keep that body. And not only that, but you have access to all of their information when you scan their brain and you take over, so you can act exactly like them, speak exactly like they do, and even move exactly like they do. Nobody would be none the wiser that Kenjaku just possessed somebody, and unlike when you body hop, there's no visible changes. This was also why Tsumiki could fool everybody. It's not like Tsumiki had stitch marks on her forehead. Kenjaku wouldn't have any stitch marks. There would be no way of anyone knowing that Kenjaku just took over somebody's body, and whoever's body may have been taken, they'll still be acting the exact same way. It's really crazy. I'm not gonna lie, I get it, it sounds outlandish, but at least it does make sense. Like, it's possible. It's sort of like Yuta taking over Gojo's body, where that theory is crazy wild. I mean, before it happened, the chance of it happening was like less than 1%, but you couldn't deny that it was a possibility, so you still had to entertain it. I actually think this whole Kenjaku placing a remnant of his soul or something like that onto somebody else is just as likely as Yuta taking over Gojo's body. Of course, it doesn't seem like that's crazy because now we saw it happen, but I do want to remind you that before that happened, there was only a handful of people that even called that happening. It was that crazy and that outlandish, but the most important thing, it was still possible. And that's what could be going on with Kenjaku, because he can split his own soul into a cursed object, and we know he can place cursed seals and such on people, and he can even make contracts to incarnate people given certain circumstances. And here's something even crazy. It's not like when you turn into a cursed object, you only have to turn into one. We saw Sukuna do something absolutely wild, and that's split his soul into 20 fingers. And the reason this is crazy is because we saw that when he was doing it with Megumi and Yuji, where he gave Megumi his finger, he did have the ability to choose to only put it into one finger if he wanted to. He put 16 fingers worth of power right into that one finger. And yes, it was 16 fingers. When Kenjaku broke the seal in Shibuya that actually released a Sukuna finger inside of Yuji, he was able to concentrate it all into one finger. So it seems like you do have the ability to choose how many cursed objects your soul goes into. So if you want to turn your soul into 3 cursed objects and split it 33.33% into each cursed object, you could do that, which is a good theory on how Kenjaku may have turned a piece of his soul into a cursed object. So let's say 5 or 10% of his soul, which would weaken him by 5 to 10%, but he would then have a contingency where, just like how the seal was broken and it immediately incarnated all the sorcerers into the people who consumed their cursed objects, it could be the same with him. Like I said before, he dies, the seal is broken, and the cursed object that he may have fed someone would awaken, and he would incarnate into it with only 5 or 10% of his power. But that's okay, because it's still a lot of power, but most importantly, he would be able to interact the merger and still play a vital role in the ending of this story. And I think that would be a very good way he could come back. It is done with tools that we've been given before, such as placing cursed objects into people, having seals that break them, that trigger incarnations, and even though he doesn't have ideal transfiguration, it still should do it because it's only one seal and it is specifically for himself. It's not tied to other sorcerers and the binding vows that he made with them, and also it's not like he's coming back for free. He will come back very nerfed with only a portion of his soul being incarnated. I mean, it would be pretty cool and wild if he came back with his full strength and his entire soul, but it could be possible that Kenjaku actually placed a cursed object on someone who's not even aware of it. Just as how he had placed seals to awaken these players, he may have also done the same, but maybe for someone in particular, he may have also given them a cursed object, that fragment of himself, and this person may be Higuruma. This would be absolutely wild because it was foreshadowed that Kenjaku has a particular interest in Higuruma and only Higuruma in terms of the players who aren't incarnated, where he directly says that I believe only Higuruma has potential, so it would make sense that he would have been the sorcerer that Kenjaku chose for this backup plan, and Kenjaku would be able to use his technique very well because yes, you need to be a lawyer in order to use Higuruma's technique, but Kenjaku for some reason has a vast amount of knowledge on a lot of random stuff. I mean, not for some reason, he's been alive for 1,000 years in so many different bodies, so if this guy has a deep and unusual level of knowledge on comedy of all things, I am certain he has the same level of knowledge on lore as well, so he'd be able to use Higuruma's technique very effectively, and also, this is someone who has the same potential as Gojo, so if he gets this body, it would be pretty crazy, I can't lie. Regardless, I think it can be executed very well, and we could still get a touch on all the plot lines that I mentioned before, and also do remember that the merger is his creation. He has waited 1,000 years to make this survive through countless battles and betrayals and the strongest errors in history, just to make it this far, only to not see it right at the very end. I do think that if anyone deserves to see their goal accomplished and to actually witness it, I do believe that Kenjaku is the one who's most deserving in the entire series.
To be honest, do I know how Kenjaku's going to come back? Will Kenjaku come back? With so many plot lines really surrounding their character, and the fact that we still have some explanation between their relationship with Tengen, the initial breach of their whole mindset in the first place, I do believe that there is a lot more to show in story for Kenjaku, whether that is them actually coming back in the flesh or more so through exposition through their backstory.
But what do you guys think? Do you think he's coming back? Do you think it'd be good or bad writing if he came back, and most importantly, do you have any theories on how he may come back that we haven't mentioned? Let me know in the comments down below, and of course, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like here, thank you, and much love again for Blaziken for coming on to this video. As I said, he's a great JJK YouTuber who's got high quality, just banger analysis and breakdown videos on JJK, so if you really do love the series, you're gonna love his videos. Subscribe to him, his channel is linked in the description down below, and of course, if you haven't subscribed to this channel too, I make a ton of consistent and quality JJK content, so if you do love JJK, you won't regret subscribing. Check us both out, and of course, thank you to all the channel members as well. It is always much appreciated, guys. That's all from us. Have a great day and take care.